Was there really ever a doubt, for being honest with each other? I mean, don't go back and watch, any of my previous videos, but, come on. We all know what's going to happen in a few weeks. Anyways, welcome back to the First and Gold podcast. I'm your host, Sam Gold. We are in for a treat today because we are covering one of the most important weeks of the season. We're getting towards the end. It's week 17 now. Christmas just happened. I hope you guys had a great holiday. The New Year's about to happen as well. It's just a great time overall and for football, and I'm excited and kind of not excited because it's sad that we only have 1 week after this before the playoffs, which sucks, but overall, still a lot to talk about. Before we get into everything, as always, every week, we have you guys comment down below on these videos your bold take of the week. We find the best one, we pin it, and we shout it out. So, this week's shout out is going to go to George McCaskey, if I'm saying that right. He said, my hot take is that the Panthers will win out the rest of the year. Now, I didn't hate this at the beginning. Well, I don't hate this now, but I didn't mind. I didn't think this totally couldn't have been wrong going into the last two games. There's only 2 games left, and the Panthers have shown that they've been much better. But they lost 48-14 yesterday. So look, I think, it is a hot take. We're not looking for bold takes to be exactly right. Now, if they are, then that's even better. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely bold because they end up getting killed. So shout out George McCaskey. Still appreciate the time and all of you guys commenting down below on these videos. And just like last week, you guys can comment down below on this video and we'll look for someone to shout out on next week's video. And also, just speaking of you guys and all the fans out there, we really appreciate your support. We've started live streaming, so, be on the lookout for that. Turn your notifications on. We're going to try to stream at least a few times a week, definitely on Fridays, most likely around Tuesdays as well, maybe even 3-4 times a week. So keep an eye out for that. We appreciate everybody popping in. We play different types of games, not just Madden, but we play Call of Duty, Jackbox party games, stuff like that. So, yeah, just be on the lookout. Thank you guys for all the support. Now it's time to move on to our 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill, as we know, is when I talk about all the games that we don't need to go fully in depth about, but I'm going to take 2 minutes out of this episode to go through them. Here we go. Let's start the timer now. All right, Jags-Titans. Nobody cares about this game. Seriously, let's move on, except for, I guess, the fact that the Jags kind of ruined their draft position, but there you go. Bills-Jets, it was 40-14. Aaron Rodgers took himself out, middle of the game. People were complaining about that, saying he's a bad teammate. No, he's just self-aware that the team sucks, and why is he going to go out there at 41 years old and put him out there down 40-0, you know what I mean? So, I don't get why people get so angry about it, but it's whatever, it's the Jets. Bucks-Panthers. Just mentioned this game, 48-14. The Bucks go out there. I had this as my unlock of the week, which I thought was going to be very, very close, 50-50. Nope, completely wrong, of course. And this was just a blowout. And the Bucks are rolling with the Falcons just losing, and now they are in sole possession of first. Man, Baker Mayfield, 5 touchdowns. What a guy this year. Patriots, Chargers, 40-7. This was my upset alert of the week. Bad week for my predictions. I picked the Patriots completely wrong on that. And Justin Herbert had one of his best games. Threw a ton of dimes. Lad McConkey looks phenomenal. They make the playoffs. Seahawks, Bears, worst game I've ever watched in my entire life. Not joking. Literally not joking. 6-3. Vikings, Raiders last year was more entertaining, and that was 3-0. The Bears are the worst team I've ever seen. Rams, Cardinals, 13-9, another yikes standalone game as well. And the Rams, they just need to win this game, and they're good. Actually, no, I think they're in the playoffs now. I can't remember if the Seahawks got eliminated, but I'll fact check that one later. Browns, Dolphins. Battle of just 2 terrible quarterbacks, but the Browns were just a little bit worse. So the Dolphins come out on top and keep their playoffs hopes alive. We'll see what happens. They could actually have a chance to get in. Eagles, Cowboys, I would like to talk about this game, but honestly, it was just such a blowout. Kenny Pickett comes in and saves the day. Saquon hits 2,000 yards. Congrats to him. And the Eagles keep on rolling and win their division. And then finally, Raiders, Saints. Who the hell cares? That's the end of the 2-minute warning, or 2-minute drill, whatever the hell I call it these days. And yeah, let's move on to 6 games that we're going to talk about a little more in depth. Let's go all the way back to Christmas. Let's start with Ravens-Texans. Now you're asking yourself, Sam, why would you leave out a game like, Browns-Dolphins maybe, where there's playoff implications, or just even a closer game, and have a 31-2 game in there? because I just got to talk about the Ravens one more time. I put this out last week. I was kind of being nice. I said that Josh Allen still deserves the MVP. But honestly, with a full week of really thinking about it, not only with the stats I laid out last week, but just the eye test and watching these games this season and kind of being annoyed at the narrative of people saying, well, you know, it's fatigue. I'm kind of sick of Lamar. He already won 2. Josh Allen's a better story. He deserves it this year. No. It has to be the best player, in my opinion. You got to vote for the best player that performed the best this season, and it's still Lamar Jackson. And look, I'm a Chiefs fan. Like, you think I want, as Mahomes, Lamar's one of his rivals. You think, as a Mahomes fan, I want Lamar to have more MVPs than Patrick Mahomes? No, of course not. But you have to be objective at this point. Once again, Lamar is beating him in all of these statistics. Yards, interceptions, total turnovers, touchdowns, QBR, passer rating, completion percentage, head-to-head. Like, all of these things Lamar hasn't beat. You're just watching the eye test, and Lamar is just... Look, and Josh Allen has had his best season, for sure, and I'm not denying that, and he's still having a great year. But you got to just go objectively who's better right now, and it's still Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Like, people really are clamoring for this storyline where Josh Allen, it's just a feel-good story. Like, that's all it is at the end of the day. I mean, that's another reason why LeBron hasn't won all those MVPs. Like, people just get sick of voting for the same person, even if they're truly having the best season. And Lamar has just won all these MVPs so far in his career, and they don't want to give it to him again. But Ravens fans know this. Most fans know this. Lamar, even though Josh Allen's been awesome, and yes, I know that Josh Allen has a worse offensive roster, although does he? Does he really? Because, I mean, James Cook, statistically, isn't extremely far off from Derrick Henry this year. Their offensive line is better. Addition by subtraction, yeah, that's the mantra for the Bills wide receiver room. I mean, Stephon Diggs has been a curse to that team the last couple of years, especially in the second half of the season. So I would argue their wide receivers are actually better. Like, I don't know. We'll see. I think Josh Allen will probably win it. But going out there in Houston on Christmas, winning 31-2, I'm sorry. And look, there's a lot to be said about the Texans and how bad they've been this year so far. Which sucks, because I really defended the Texans a lot this year, especially in the first half of the season. I went back, looked at my midseason power rankings that I wrote down. I'm pretty sure I had the Texans at like 4th. And I was high on them. That was right after they beat the Packers. But man, look, I think CJ Stroud will end up being a top 10 quarterback throughout his career. Not of all time, just saying, like, out of the quarterbacks that are currently in the league, you know, every year that's happening, he will be in that top 10 range. But yeah, he's having a sophomore slump. Some of it's to blame just on him. Some of it's injuries, of course. Some of it's the offensive line. Some of it is teams weren't expecting the Texans and him to be as good as rookie season. And now they have more tape on the team. And now they kind of know how to lock him up a little bit better. There's all these different, there's all these reasons why people have sophomore slumps in general. And I just named a few of them. So, do I think the Texans are first-round exits? Yeah, unfortunately they are. Even if they play the Steelers, I think the Steelers are going to beat the Texans. And I don't know. I mean, to go out there in a huge standalone spot at home against a team you know that you might also have to play in the playoffs, in the Ravens, and you're putting up 2 points. It's almost worse that you put up 2 points. You might as well just gotten shut out at that point, because 2 is such a stupid score, and I'm actually surprised 31-2 is not scoregami, but shout out the 1967 Cowboys, 64, something like that. But yeah, just, oh gosh, a tale of 2 completely different days on Christmas for those teams, especially the Ravens. They had a great day because the Steelers lost, which segues into our next game. Chiefs, Steelers, 29-10 on Christmas. The Chiefs go into Pittsburgh and finally have a blowout. I've been waiting for this moment since week 3 of last year, honestly, which is funny. I'm acting like I'm complaining, even though we literally won the Super Bowl and now we're 15-1. I'm not complaining, but look, every Chiefs fan can relate to this. We kind of needed a game like this just so we could stop doubting them finally, because I really was getting to, it's crazy, man, how spoiled I am. I was getting to a point only a couple weeks ago where I was like, yeah, like, Chiefs just beat the Browns 21-7, but I just don't think we're gonna get it done in the playoffs. Like, there's just so many holes. No. They just proved once again, just like the Texans game, that when it truly matters, Mahomes has to turn on the Jets. We finally have our offensive pieces healthy. We move Joe Thuney to left tackle, which, by the way, if we end up winning the Super Bowl this year, that is going to be the most underrated story of the Chiefs offense. Joe Thuney moving to left tackle for the last 3 games. In a 3-game, 10-day stretch, the Chiefs have let up 1 sack. 1 sack! And I'm pretty sure that wasn't even Joe Thuney. I'm pretty sure it was Jawaan Taylor, which... gosh, just horrible. I hate Jawaan Taylor. Anyways, we have transformed into the team we were supposed to be at the beginning of the year before the injuries. It seems like everybody's confident now. We have chemistry. I mean, hell, even Travis Kelce came out and had a vintage Travis Kelce game. People have been saying this all along. Yeah, look, Kelce is definitely slowing down. He's getting older. Maybe he retires after this year. But when it truly, truly matters towards the end of the year and the playoffs, he's going to find the open spot in the zone and get those yards and still look like an elite tight end. And that's exactly what he did here in Pittsburgh. Now, it definitely helped that he was chasing Tony Gonzalez's record. Congrats to Kelce for doing that. He also hit over 1,000 receptions in his career, which is just insane for a guy that didn't even play in his first season as well. So, just another thing to tack on to one of the greatest players of all time. And just as a fan myself, it was just really, really nice. Look, when I was doubting the Chiefs a few weeks ago, I was hoping to God that I was completely wrong and that they would do something like this. And that's exactly what they did. And look, obviously, I wouldn't have been shocked if the Chiefs still go out and win the Super Bowl, even if they went out and laid an egg against Pittsburgh, even lost. But, the only reason I get so frustrated, other than being spoiled, but the only reason I get so frustrated is because I see the potential for this team to really make history and do something no other team has done before. And that's really why I'm so passionate about this. Because you look at Mahomes, you look at Reed, you look at Kelce, you look at the interior offensive line, you look at the defense, the pass rush, and now the fact that the weapons are healthy, and you're like, damn, I don't know if this team is ever going to get this opportunity again. And it's just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not only, of course, for the players, but as a fan watching this. As Kansas City Chiefs fans, we have to be aware that this is the greatest possible situation a sports fan or a football fan has ever been in. Ever. I'm not kidding. Maybe the Steelers when they were about to win their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years as well. But look, I feel like we have the pieces in place. I'll be pretty heartbroken if, we don't make the Super Bowl, which sounds stupid, but I just know what potential this team has. I just know it. And the fact, all I needed was a couple games like this, and the fact that they did it in a 10-day stretch in just 3 games, I should stop doubting them forever. I really should. This team is so accustomed to winning, and they know how to pull it out and to really put things together when it matters absolute most. They knew going in there that they could have a 3-week break to rest their bodies. You just got to go out there, lay it on the line, win this game in Pittsburgh, and you're set until this divisional round of the playoffs. And they did that. So that makes me very, very confident in this team. It's crazy to say because they won all these games, but I really haven't been able to say that with full confidence in my chest the entire year. Mahomes played great in this game. The defense was awesome. The defense had 5 sacks without Chris Jones. That's insane. Trent McDuffie's been playing great. Man, no matter what happens this season, though, I'm just so pumped for the playoffs coming up, and we'll see what happens. But, I would get into the Steelers, but this is just how they've been the rest of the season. The last few games, their offense is really slowing down now. It seems like, every year Mike Tomlin tries to hit that 9-win threshold, 10-win threshold, and then they kind of just fizzle out. So, although they probably will have a decent game against the Texans in the wild card round, they could absolutely win. I don't know. I don't see a bright future for the Steelers right now in terms of overall success. All right, let's move on. Colts, Giants, one of the doozies of the entire season. I would say of the Colts franchise, but here's what we need to run down a second, because ever since Colts fans booed Andrew Luck in 2019 off the field in the preseason, they have had a wash Phillip Rivers on their team, which, mind you, they did make the playoffs, but he needed a Hail Mary that was so weak in Buffalo. They lost that season. 2021, Carson Wentz comes along, has some high moments, definitely has some lows, and then of course they go into Jacksonville where they only have one win, lose, and miss the playoffs. 2022, they just sucked. And then last year, they had a wide open Tyler Goodson, which hit him in the hands, but mind you, it was a pass that was slightly behind him thrown by Gardner Minshew on 4th and 1 against the Texans. They missed the playoffs. And this one, of course, they hand deliver Drew Lock 45 points, 300 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. They lose in MetLife for the second time in 3 years, actually, surprisingly, which was the last time the Giants put up that many points was against the Colts in 2022. The Giants... The fact, it's just insane that this happened, and the fact that Al and I tried to handpick a game to go to at MetLife this year, and we were like, okay, Ravens-Giants is a cool matchup, but it's probably just going to be a blowout. Let's just go to the tailgate. Jets-Rams. All right, let's actually go to that game because we want to see Aaron Rodgers for the first time and Matt Stafford for the first time. And then, of course, it ends 19-9, and it's 4 degrees out. And then Colts-Giants, we were like, okay, we're definitely not going to Colts-Giants. Why would we ever torture ourselves with a horrible matchup in late December? And then, of course, it ends up being one of the best games at MetLife this year and just absolutely insane. 1 million points put up, and the Colts blow their entire season. So, just, look, I'm smiling. I'm sorry to Colts fans listening to this. I'm smiling not because I'm laughing at you guys, but I'm just laughing at just, like, why? Like, why is this... It really must be karma, seriously, for booing Andrew Luck. Because, first of all, the Giants haven't even won a game at MetLife in 2024 up until this point. And the fact that it was 45 points, Drew Lock's best game of his career, which congrats. Go get that money. Go get that money, Drew. Is there anything worse? Comment down below. Is there anything worse than having to leave Newark Airport as a Colts player and your season ended? Like... you just played at MetLife, and now you got to go to Newark, and it's horrible. Anyways, and the Giants too. Like, of course they win it. Fans probably weren't even happy that they won the game. Although I'm not a big proponent of Shedeur Sanders. I don't really think he's going to be that good of a player. So maybe they got away with one there. The first overall pick does go to him, and the Giants don't get him, but. I mean, of course the Giants win when it doesn't matter, and they shouldn't. And this game overall ended up being something that I didn't think would have to be discussed on this episode, but it was one of the craziest games of the weekend, so there you go. All right, Bengals, Broncos, 30-24 in overtime. The Bengals come out with a clutch win. Funny enough, I had the Bengals winning in overtime 27-24 on the podcast, and if Cade York would have just made that field goal, I would have been right, so thanks, Cade. Anyways, the game itself, I don't like describing games with this specific phrase, but I can't think of anything else right now at the moment, so I'm going to have to call it a drunk game. Now, there's a couple of these a year. This was definitely on the list, and it's really funny with the Bengals, because as a Chiefs fan, obviously, I don't want them to make the playoffs because they play well against the Chiefs. But there was 50% of this game where I was like, yeah, hell no. Please don't let them in the playoffs. I don't want Joe Burrow anywhere near the Chiefs. He's going off. Their offense can score at any moment. They are scary. And then the other 50% of this game, it was like they are one of the worst teams ever. I don't understand how they give up these plays on defense. I don't understand how they keep kicking themselves in the foot every single time, trying to lose at any point in the game. The Cade York missed field goal, letting Drew Lock throw a 60-yard bomb to a wide open receiver, letting Drew Lock hit a Hail Mary to a guy that was double covered. I mean, so many instances where they could have lost this game. They had so many chances to close it out. Now, luckily, they still ended up winning in a very, very clutch scenario to T. Higgins. He went crazy in this game as well. And they stay alive. They're 8-8. They still have somewhat of a chance to make the playoffs. But, man, what a wild, insane game for the Bengals. Just the story of their season all kind of packed into one game itself. I knew it was going to be a heart attack because I feel like these teams are very evenly matched. It's just crazy. Like, my jaw was on the floor multiple times during that game, and I just don't understand how the Bengals can do this to their fans. I just don't get it. I wasn't able to be with my dad for this game, but he was like screaming. He was at a bar. He was screaming at the television in front of all these strangers. I was like, Dad, you can't just yell as a rogue guy, not even wearing Bengals stuff. And he's like, I couldn't help it. Like, it was just driving me insane. So yeah, that's the type of game that the Bengals played. I want to get into the Broncos, but I feel like that's more of a discussion for next week in case they still make the playoffs. Last thing with the Bengals. I mean, if the Bengals do make the playoffs, I just talked about Lamar earlier and how he should deserve it. 100% Joe Burrow should deserve it if they make the playoffs. I mean, bar none. This guy's been insane this year. He's got 40-something touchdowns, less than 10 interceptions. Best season of his career by far. And man, this might annoy some people, some fan bases, but I think for sure he's the second best quarterback in the NFL. So I'll leave it at that. Let's move on to a game that was very similar in Commanders-Falcons. Also ended 30-24 in overtime with the Commanders on a game-winning touchdown with an LSU quarterback throwing the game-winning touchdown. Kind of similar there. Before I get to the Commanders, the Falcons, man. Like, I don't know what it is about the Falcons, but I have the opinion that the NFL is more fun when the Falcons are good. Now, maybe that's because of my age, growing up in the Michael Vick era, the Matt Ryan era, the Julio Jones era. I don't know what it is. The offenses, the stadium, the Sunday night games they used to be in. Like, it's just more fun with Atlanta being good. And the fact that they started so good, especially after that overtime Thursday night win against the Bucs, I thought this was really going to be their season, that they can go out and be successful. And then to have a 17-7 lead in this game with Michael Penix having some good moments. He even took him into overtime with that clutch 4th and goal touchdown pass. And then, of course, they just let the Commanders march down the field and lose. And I'm sick of it. I wanted the Falcons to make the playoffs. As a Chiefs fan, I really shouldn't be this passionate. But just as an NFL fan in general, like, the Bucs are fine. I like Baker, but I'm kind of sick of them right now. I really would have liked the Falcons in a game where I expected the Commanders to go out and actually dominate. They had a chance. That's the part that bugs me the most. If they would have gotten outplayed completely, I would have been fine. It would have been like, yeah, that's what I thought. The Commanders were by far the better team. But they were up 70-7, and they looked like they had heart. And then they just stalled out and blew it. And I'm sure Falcons fans share much more frustration as they're actual fans of the team. But, yeah, that sucks to see. I mean, I would talk about Penix and their future, but honestly, we got more important things to talk about, and we got the whole offseason to speculate about the Falcons. So with that being said, the Commanders, props to them. Like, when they're on a roll, the Commanders are on a roll. Like, they have a good time when they are on a hot streak. Jaden Daniels looks good. He's confident running the ball. Brian Robinson looks good as well. Olamide Zaccheaus revenge game. There you go. But yeah, the Commanders, I had them going like 3-14 this year. They're about to win their 12th game probably in week 18. So props to them. They made the playoffs for the first time since 2020. Okay, let's move on to the final game. Vikings-Packers 27-25. The Vikings come out with another win. Their 14th of the season. And now they move on to Sunday Night Football against the Lions in Detroit to possibly be the 1 seed, which is just insane. Kind of like with the Commanders, I picked them to miss the playoffs. I think I had them at 6-11, which is insane. In this game itself, Vikings-Packers was very similar to the first Vikings-Packers matchup this season, where the Vikings pretty much dominated for the first 3.5 quarters. The Packers came back, scored a couple touchdowns, made it close, but overall the Vikings were the better team. And it's just crazy to really take a step back and think about the Vikings this season. Now, I know I've been pretty positive about them at many points this year, but the fact, if they beat the Lions and get the 1 seed, they're going to have the same amount of victories they did in 1998 when they had Randy Moss. And that was the season they really should have won the Super Bowl. So Kevin O'Connell, look, as much as I want Andy Reid to win it, especially if the Chiefs go out there and win 16 games this year, he's not going to. It should absolutely be Kevin O'Connell winning the Coach of the Year, because this is just insane at this point. Nobody expected the defense to be this good. They're going to get Ivan Pace back as well. Shout out Ivan Pace. Al loves him. He's got the same last name. And it just feels like this team's only going to get better. And the fact that, you know, when they absolutely needed to pick it back up on offense, the run game was working. They were hitting Justin Jefferson later in the game on these quick passes just to get in his hands. And even when they were locked up, Jalen Nailor comes out of nowhere and produces for them. So this is just a well-oiled machine right now that is completely different from the other successful Vikings seasons that they have had. I mean, you even go back and look at Sam Darnold's stats, not only in this game, I mean, he was great. No turnovers once again, nearly 400 yards, multiple touchdowns. You look at his stats this season. 4,153 yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but 106 passer rating, which is 14 points better than any passer rating he's had his entire career. His second best season passer rating-wise was on the 2022 Panthers, which he got benched halfway through the season. So there you go. But man, just what a ride. I mean, Al, I know you've just been in shock this entire season. I'm sure other Vikings fans have. And seriously, if the Vikings are able to get the 1 seed, they can avoid what I think would be their hardest game in the playoffs, which is at Philly. If they can avoid that specific matchup, I actually think they legitimately have a chance for the Super Bowl because they can play their division opponents pretty closely. I mean, they already beat the Packers twice. I think they're going to go out and beat the Lions this week. So, man, I mean, Al, the first year on the podcast, doing in full, just us two, if it's Chiefs-Vikings, I mean, it can't possibly get better than that. Game of the century. We're going to have to be together for it, stream it, whatever we got to do, talk shit to each other.
Uniform matchup of the week.
Uniform.
Of the century, lock of the century, unlock.
Lock of the century.
It is everything.
Yeah, it's the unlock. It's definitely the big unlock. Gosh, just what a seat. Like we're done, doing the games now for this episode, but like I just have to say, like, last 2 seasons, although obviously the Chiefs went back to back, and as a Chiefs fan, it's been awesome. But overall, objectively, I feel like they've been kind of weak. The officiating, the officiating's always bad every year, including this season, but like officiating sucked. There were so many quarterback injuries. Primetime games were bad. Playoffs weren't as exciting. Like this year, however, I think the playoffs are going to be insane. Quarterback play is at an all-time high this season. Storylines are up. It's insane. The Chiefs are 15-1. Like, this has been such a fun season. It has flown by. But we have one more recap video before we get to the playoffs. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to comment down below your bold take of the week. Like and subscribe. Follow us at First and Gold on TikTok and Instagram. And we'll see you guys next time for another video. Goodbye.